All right, welcome back into Gridiron Icon, and man, am I jacked up this week. Anyone who listens to this show knows I love myself some offensive linemen. I think they're the guys we don't talk enough about, and we have a very special guest joining us on Gridiron Icon this week. Our guest, and I think this is going to give it away, is a national champion from that little school, maybe you've heard of him, Notre Dame, as well as an NFL Pro Bowler, member of the 1990 Pro Football Writers Association All-Rookie Team. He happens to be graced in the Kansas City Chiefs Ring of Honor, and as we'll learn in this episode, he can also add author to his list of achievements now. We are joined by the great Tim Grunhard, or Grunny, as many around the football and the NFL world know him. Tim, thanks a million for joining us here.
Hey, Stacy, no problem, man. I'm so excited to be on with you, talk a little bit of football, and yes, offensive linemen. You know, we're always invited to things. We're not told where they're at. That's kind of the deal. So I'm glad to be on with you guys and talk some football, tell some great stories, and talk a little bit about the new book.
I can't wait to hear about it. I feel like that's so backwards. I mean, anybody who's played the game and I was a wannabe, that was it for me. That 4.7 40 didn't take me far. But I feel like we should be following the offensive linemen, not inviting them and not telling them where to. We're just watching their rear ends and following them.
I always tell people, we get our only glory and our only excitement when we watch other people have success. So the five guys working as one, we see a running back run through the hole and score a touchdown, or we give guys like Joe Montana or Dave Craig or Rich Gannon some time to throw the ball down the field. That's our glory. That's what we do. And it's a great life. It's exciting. It's teamwork at its best. But the offensive linemen, they're starting to get a little bit more respect nowadays with as far as financially. But there's nothing like being in an offensive line room and being with a bunch of guys and have one goal, and that's win football games and give other people the opportunity to have success.
Love it, man. And I got to tell you, true story. I'm not making this up in lieu of you sitting here in front of me via the internet. But I had a business call today, and I actually used offensive linemen in an illustration to make a point. I hope it landed, but I don't think people realize how important you guys are. And I feel like that we're coming around to that. Even the common fan is. So I want to ask you this, because you didn't come out of the womb an offensive lineman. Take us back to the beginning as a kid. How did you fall in love with football? Was it your only sport? How did you get into the game?
Well, I'm going to refer back to the book a lot here, and I apologize. I am not trying to shamelessly promote the book, but
be shameful.
In 1971, I was 3 years old, and the Kansas City Chiefs had just won the Super Bowl in 1970. My aunt, who lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, bought me a Kansas City Chief helmet. And when I got the helmet, Stacy, you got to stay with me here. When I got the helmet, I cried my eyes out because it wasn't a Bears helmet and it wasn't a Notre Dame helmet.
Ooh.
You grew up on the Southside of Chicago. There's only two teams, Notre Dame and the Chicago Bears. So when my dad saw me crying and, wanted to appease me probably because I was bothering him so much, he actually took some gold paint and painted the helmet Notre Dame gold. So fast forward, that's when I fell in love with football. I was inseparable from that helmet. I used to wear it to church. I would wear it to family events. And finally, by the end of the summer, that helmet started to kind of break down a little bit. And the gold started coming off, and the Chief would bleed through. And then you fast forward, let's say 19 years later, and I played for the Kansas City Chiefs and Notre Dame, the only two teams. So life is strange. But having that helmet, there was a Chiefs helmet painted in the Notre Dame colors, the only two teams I played for, is what made me fall in love with football.
That is a wild story. Like, you had a helmet with the only two teams you were a kid. Next, you're going to tell me, and I hung out with Len Dawson. He was my babysitter. What? That's crazy. Wow.
He probably would have been my babysitter, but, the famous picture of him smoking a cigarette, I'm not sure my mom would have let him probably watch over me. But Lenny was a great guy. But, just crazy how that worked out. And I have a picture, it's in the book, of me wearing that helmet, and you could see the red just bleeding through the Notre Dame colors. And, I just fell in love with football there. And, Stacy, like anybody else, right, in my very first high school practice, I went to the running back line. I wanted to be a running back. I thought I'm going to be a fullback. I want to be like Matt Suey, or I want to be like Jim Jodat, which nobody really knows, but he played for the Seattle Seahawks. He had a big game at a Monday night game. I don't know why I fell in love with the guy. He had shirts with Jim Jodak, right? So I went to the running back line, and by the end of practice, I found myself in my home for the rest of my life, the offensive line and meeting room. So that's where I was at. That's where I stayed.
God, that's why you nailed it. I mean, almost everyone we talk to, I'm a running back or a wide receiver, and you get the occasional quarterback. No, you're a left tackle. That is crazy. And my God, we just have a Jim Jodat reference? That is awesome. I know I got football cards, man. I got me some Jim. We're about the same age. I'm a little bit older than you. So I had the joy of watching you play and all sorts of good stuff. So what were your other interests as a kid? I mean, were you Southside of Chicago? I mean, that's a very interesting upbringing, different from the South or the West Coast. What you'd like doing?
Yeah, so my father was a Chicago policeman, so I didn't get away with much growing up. But, what we did is every summer my dad said, nothing good happens in the city in the summer. So we would go down to the Lake of the Ozarks, actually here in the state of Missouri, and go fishing and kind of camping and those kind of things. We were always gone all summer. So my first love was fishing and camping and all those kind of things. But then kind of graduated on to when you get into Little League, and I was a baseball player. Now, a little known fact is my brother was a professional baseball player. He played for the California Angels and the Oakland A's and their organizations, and played baseball at Northwestern, and his roommate was Joe Girardi. So growing up, we were just big baseball guys, and I loved baseball. But for two reasons. One is I didn't want to follow my brother's footsteps because he was so good, and there's no way I was going to be that good. And number two, I like to eat. So the bigger I got, the worse I got at baseball. So I said, I might as well just go ahead and play football. That's kind of where my zone is going to be. But a lot of baseball growing up, we played every sport. And I always tell kids, hey, listen, play every sport. And then when you get into high school, they'll kind of weed you out. If you're a baseball player, you play baseball. If you're a basketball player, you play basketball. But until you get to high school, play every sport. It's great for teamwork. It's great for athleticism. And it's great just to have fun and go out there and play a sport. Because I will tell you, I miss getting up to the plate and playing and trying to hit a baseball. The last time I did that was my senior year in high school. And every time I watch a game, I think back, man, that was so much fun to do that. But I was kind of weeded out and decided to go play football, and the rest is history.
God, I tell you, you're going to think that I'm making this stuff up. I feel like this is some kind of strange kismet or destiny. You are the third ex-NFL player we've had on Gridiron Icon that mentioned that they started and loved, and some of them were their first love was baseball. And they ended up getting weeded out in high school and some in the first couple of years of college, and then off to the NFL they went. But they were baseball guys.
Yeah, but because growing up in the city, we had like little baseball fields everywhere. So every summer you'd go out there and you play lob pitch, or you go play off the wall, or you'd play fast pitch with a rubber ball in the square on the side of the building. And that's what we did all summer. So we all fell in love. And then everybody played football, but you couldn't wear equipment. You couldn't go out. You'd go out and play tag or whatever it was in football, but baseball was kind of the sport growing up. And I grew up a Chicago Cubs fan on the south side of Chicago, which is a rough thing to be, because Sox fans and Cub fans do not get along. It's like oil and water. So, and I think my dad, and I talk about it in the book, I think his whole goal in life was to make sure that I was not comfortable. He thought if you were comfortable, you weren't growing, you had to get out of your comfort zone in order to have the success that you want. And everything we did, and I think I was part of his little scheme, is that, if I was a White Sox fan, it would have been easy. But as a Cub fan, I mean, everybody was ridiculing me, and the Cubs weren't very good. They finally did something, but they're back to where they're at. But I was uncomfortable. It was just part of the deal. But, you grow in those kind of circumstances.
God, that's a great message. You youngsters listening to that, pick up on that. Don't be comfortable. There's nothing to be gained there. Really good stuff, man. Okay, so I gotta fast forward. You're a kid, south side of Chicago. You're liking the wrong teams. You're playing baseball. How in the world did you get to Notre Dame, especially hearing that as a kid you wanted that gold helmet, that gold dome? How did you get there? What, for a young guy listening that's got big dreams?
Yeah, you know what? It was a wild, strange story of how I was recruited at Notre Dame. Jerry Foss was the head coach at Notre Dame in 1985 when I was being recruited. And he did not want offensive linemen that were under 6'4". So I was not being recruited by Notre Dame, and it broke my heart because there were some guys on my team. We had a pretty good football team that were being recruited at Notre Dame and were being offered scholarships at Notre Dame. And I thought I was just as good as they were, but I wasn't being offered scholarships. So Tom Lemming, who is the ESPN kind of high school guru, still does it. He started out in Chicago. So we had a relationship, and he said, Tim, he said, Jerry Faust is not going to offer you a scholarship. You're just too small. So you better just get that out of your mind. Well, it's funny because this skinny little guy with a lisp called me in, I guess it was July of my going into my senior year by the name of Lou Holtz. And he said, Tim Grunhard, this is Lou Holtz. We want to offer you a scholarship to the University of Minnesota. And I was like, okay. That's that really cold place, right? That it snows constantly and it's like 10 below zero all the time. But we built a relationship, and George Stewart, who's now an NFL coach, who was a recruiting coordinator, and he came at least once a week to come and visit and talk. We built a relationship too. Fast forward, crazy story. Jerry Faust gets fired. Lou Holtz gets hired. I didn't hear from Lou right away. Didn't hear from Lou, but I thought maybe, just maybe, he'll carry that scholarship over. So I'm working during the Christmas season at Walgreens, right? I'm working at a Walgreens. I get a phone call, and my manager said, there's somebody on the phone for you. You got to take it. I said, who's calling me at work at a Walgreens, right? So I pick up the phone. He said, Tim Grunhard, Lou Holtz, we'd like for you to come out for a visit to Notre Dame the next weekend. And I'm like, who is this? I said, I'm like, this is one of my buddies pulling my chain here. I said, okay, coach. Yeah, whatever. He goes, no, Tim, this is Lou Holtz. I said, and then I figured out it was him. So went on the visit. He offered me a scholarship there. I was the last guy to get a scholarship at Notre Dame. In that
wow.
Yeah. But, that's just part of kind of the weird, wild world of being Tim Grunhard. So.
My God, man, what a story. By the way, that is the best impression of the coach I have ever seen. Clearly, you spent some time with him. Nailed it.
Yeah, most of them were, Tim Grunhard, get your ass out. That was mostly the time I was getting yelled at from him. But, yeah, no, Lou was a great coach and really, and I know you're going to have some questions a little bit later, but was certainly one of the guys who was really the big influence on me to play this game.
Oh, I can only imagine. That laundry list is amazing when I look at your career. Wow. So you land at Notre Dame. You're seconds away from Minnesota and the frozen tundra, Green Bay, but it's close enough. And you're suddenly, you go to your dream school of Notre Dame. And might I add, arguably you were there during the glory years in modern era for sure. I mean, I often look at an offensive lineman and how they develop, and this is just my weird fan guy brain, but I look at who do they practice against? Like, how do they get this good? I mean, that Notre Dame roster had Chris Zorich on it, and you played, I'm assuming, nose to nose against that guy in practice.
Man, Stacy, you hit it right on the head. Chris Zorich.
Wow.
Once again, not trying to be a shameless plug, but it's in the book. I
Please.
talk about how Chris, I mean, he would work me so hard during the week.
Wow.
We used to call him Full Go Zorro was his name. Because there was no taking plays off. There was no brother-in-law going on, that's for sure. And Chris and I would battle every day at practice. When I got in the game, and I told Chris, and I mentioned in the book, I said, Chris, the games are easy. I go against these guys in the game, and they're nothing compared to you all week. So, Chris was certainly a great football player, and we practiced against all kinds of great guys. And Lou Holtz really held us accountable. We worked hard, and we made sure we, crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's and did all the little things that you have to do to be successful. And you're right, that team was in the glory years. But remember now, Lou came in our first year, we were 5-6. And didn't go to a bowl game. The next year, we were halfway decent, but we went to Texas A&M. I went to the Cotton Bowl against Texas A&M and got beat pretty handily there. And then all those guys graduated. And I was one of the only guys that had a little bit of playing time going into that junior year up front. And wow. I had like 5 starts, I think I had. And the rest of the guys had 0. And then we won a national championship. So the message is, listen, if you work hard, you dedicate yourself, and you believe in yourself, you give yourself an opportunity by hard work and dedication, that you might have an opportunity to do something special, and we did.
Wow, man. So you just, from the beginning, the first couple of years, just being humble, playing your role. I mean, that 1988 national champion Notre Dame national championship team is, quite frankly, is considered one of the best, if not the best, college football teams in the history of the game. And that's not brown nosing. That's a fact. I got to throw out a couple. As anyone who's seen this show on YouTube knows, I have, and I don't want Tim to hang up on me here, but I'm a big Rams fan, have been since the 70s. So you got to play with guys that I grew up absolutely loving. Todd Light, Pat Terrell. Those were guys. So I just look at that team. What made that team so incredible going into that Miami game?
Stacey, I can't let you finish this without mentioning Pete Houlihan.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm a Pete Houlihan. Complete. I didn't connect that. How could I have missed it? Jim Everett's favorite target man for several years. Pete Houlihan is one of the most underrated guys. Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
So Pete came towards the end of his career and played with the Chiefs for a couple of years, and I just love that guy. He was awesome. But you know what? Playing with guys, our class, and kind of a real funny story is, so our first class, we were Lou Holtz's first class, and he basically put the class together in a month and a half. I mean, he didn't have much time. He left Minnesota in December, and the signing period was in February. So he only had a little bit of time to put this recruiting class together. So he put together guys like Pat Terrell. It was me, Dean Brown, who ended up playing in the NFL for a while, Tony Rice, Anthony Johnson, a pretty good class of players. And I know I'm missing a bunch. But so in the very first meeting, Stacey, you're going to love this. So the very first meeting, we're sitting in the back, right? Lou Holtz walks in. And he goes, I want everybody to sit up, put your feet on the ground, get your paper out, take notes. That's how we conduct ourselves at University of Notre Dame. And he said, I want all the guys that I recruited to stand up right now. And at this point, we thought, okay, here he goes. He's going to say, these are the guys that I recruited. These are the guys we're going to build this football program around. These are my guys. You guys had your chance. Now I brought in my guys, and here we go. This is the future of the University of Notre Dame. So we all stand up. We're feeling pretty good about ourselves. We feel like the angels are singing behind us and the spotlights are on us. We're the golden childs of the Notre Dame football program. And he said, let me tell you guys one thing. If I had one more month of recruiting, none of your asses would have been here.
You're thinking I'm handpicked, but no.
So we all just kind of slumped down and sat down and just were quiet for the first year. But that class did go on in our junior year, like you said, won a national championship. In our senior year, which I thought was a better football team, I think we won 24 of our last 25 football games. So we had a pretty good run.
God, it's just unbelievable looking back at that team. I actually, in knowing we were going to hang out, I went back and watched it just to relive some of that. Again, I want to point out when I'm thinking of Tim Grunhard, and by the way, all of this is in the book, folks. View from the Center. We're going to talk a lot. I'm going to shamelessly plug it. Go pick this up because this is an incredible career arc with this person here. But again, I'm looking at that going, wait a minute. So Grunny there was also blocking Cortez Kennedy and Russell Maryland. You guys were not supposed to win that game, and you guys beat them.
Yeah, that was, some people think one of the greatest college football games of all time.
It was.
And it really was a great game. And, Cortez Kennedy, who I played against for 11 years in the NFL because he was in Seattle and I was in Kansas City. We were in the same division, same conference, played each other twice a year. But we battled, but we had a great friendship. And Russell Maryland, a Chicago guy, a guy that was a guy that I knew from the old neighborhood. So, and I played against him when he was in Dallas for many years. But, Cortez Kennedy was just a wonderful human being and a great guy to play against. And boy, he was tough and physical and just man. He certainly belongs into the Hall of Fame. It was a great battle every time we played against each other.
God, I love that. But again, I want to point something out. We NFL fans, I'm doing this for all those fans, the guys out there at the end of the bar. A lot of times we hear those big names, but we don't think about the guys that were blocking them. And listen, man, Chris Zorich, Russell Maryland, Cortez, who stopped those guys? This guy. I'm going to shamelessly plug you. I think that's incredible. And I think that it probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, it lent to how well you played this game and where you ended up.
Well, thank you. Now, I had some great coaches. Started out with Howard Mudd, who was one of the more more famous technical coaches as far as fundamentals and technique, as good as anybody. And then when he left, I got a guy by the name of Alex Gibbs, who many people think was one of the greatest coaches of all time in the offensive line. And he was a scheme guy. So I learned a lot of things about how to read defenses and how to understand different shades and different tendencies and all these different things from him. And then I had Art Shell. Remember, Art Shell was my offensive line coach for 2 years.
I did not remember. God, that's incredible.
An unbelievable guy, just to pick his brain to be a pro. And then Mike Solari, who was up in Seattle and is still bumming around. Mike was a great coach. So I was so blessed to have the offensive line coaches that I had. So you know what? You go against guys, and when you're a little bit smaller, you got to have better technique. And I learned that from Mike Webster, my mentor, the guy that I loved more than anybody. Who gave me an opportunity to have success in the NFL. He was just a small guy. He was strong, and he was physical, and he was tough. But he was a small guy, and he relied on technique and fundamentals, and that's what he taught me to do, and that's what helped me to last 11 years in the NFL.
God, what a blessing to get to play, even in that abbreviated time at the end of his career. I think people forget you played with Mike Webster, and how things ended up with him, I think, is one of the I'll be really candid with you. It's one of the reasons for this podcast. I want to continue to help the greats of this game continue to live, because Mike deserved a lot better. And I know there's a lot of controversy around that, but you knew him, and you big heart, and had that big of an impact on you.
Yeah, he gave everything, and I mean everything, to the NFL. And hey, you know, we can go into the politics of all that, but reality is that Mike Webster was a football player who was great for the NFL, who the city of Pittsburgh reveres him. When I go into Pittsburgh, people say, "You knew Mike Webster?" Like, as if you know the Pope. But Mike was just a wonderful person and really took me under his wing. When my father passed away after my third game, my rookie year, 50, he was my age when he passed away.
I'm sorry.
But he said, "Listen, Tim," he said, you three things you got to do. Number one is you got to honor your father, and you got to work hard for him. Number two, you got to take care of your family. This is the way for you to take care of your family. And number three, always know that if you ever need anything, that I could go talk to him. And, and I always felt bad because he just kind of disappeared. And I couldn't find him. Nobody could find him. But Mike Webster had a profoundly influenced my life and my football career.
God, thanks for sharing that. And I know that's in the book, View from the Center, as well. I think we really need to honor those guys and how much they gave. And I love it. I love the insight. So we're going to fast forward here quickly from Notre Dame, where you enjoyed incredible success playing with great players, and jump into Kansas City. And I got to tell you, you are a unicorn, man. I mean, not many guys play for one team anymore. And to look at your career, 11 years with the Kansas City Chiefs, I watched you play. So I'm going to play fan guy over here a little bit. You got drafted in that second round, number 40, to the Chiefs. What was that experience like compared to maybe today's? What was it like for a young guy, 22 years old or whatever?
Wow. Yeah. So it's really once again, I mean, I can't make this stuff up. That's why I wrote a book, because there's so many crazy things that have happened in my life to me, and they've all been pretty good, but I'm not complaining. But so a couple months before the draft, I went out to the 49ers, and Bob McKittrick, who was the offensive line coach, and Bob Seifert was the head coach, and Walsh was the GM. And went out there, and listen, I was a guy that I wasn't even sure what I was. The people thought I was a center. Some people thought I was a guard. I never played center one snap in college. I only played guard. So when I got to the NFL, Howard Mudd came over and gave me a football and said, "Hey, you're a center." I said, "Okay." So, yeah, it's crazy.
You're captain of the offensive line now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, don't screw it up, kid. Here are the keys to the Ferrari. Don't crash it. Oh, wow. So Bob McKittrick and we're talking, and at the end of the deal, they said, "Hey, listen, we're going to take you in the first round." And I said, "What?" I mean, I was predicted a fourth, fifth, sixth round. When they said, "No, we want you." Jesse Sapullo's getting a little bit older. We like you. We wanted to meet you. We're going to take you in the first round. So the day of the draft, the 49ers call me and they say, hey, we want to make sure this is the number. Get ready to be called in the first round. And as I watched the first round, the 49ers pick came up and they said, the 49ers pick wide receiver Dexter Carter from Florida State.
I remember that.
Right? And I was like, okay. So right after that, they called me and said, hey, we didn't know Dexter Carter was going to be there. We're definitely going to take you in the second round. And I said, that's fine, guys. I'm just excited to be a 49er. I'm just excited to be playing football. I thought I was going to go in the fifth or sixth round anyway. So second round sounds pretty good to me. So about a half hour later, I get a phone call, and it's Carl Peterson. He says, Tim Grunhard, Carl Peterson. Where it took you at the 40th pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. I said, oh, cool. That's great. Wow. So I hung up the phone, and I said to my wife, I think Kansas City's in Missouri, but I'm not sure. Is it in Kansas or Missouri? I said, I don't even know where the place is at. And then the next day I flew out there. So the draft was a wild experience for me too. I was going to be a 49er all up until the very end. And then I was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. But it was the greatest thing that happened to me. And you're right. Being here 11 years as a football player was such a blessing to stay in one city and be involved with this great city right here in Kansas City.
Man, that's fantastic. And I know you've stayed there, and we'll get into some of that here. But just an incredible story. I mean, here's a 22-year-old guy. The night you think you're going to be a 49er, and it's kind of like that Notre Dame helmet thing. Like, oh, here come the Chiefs.
Right. And you know what? I was like, oh, my gosh, I'm going to be playing with Joe Montana. I love Joe Montana. In fact, my wife had a poster of Joe Montana in her locker. Sarah went to Notre Dame and was a huge Notre Dame football fan. And she had a poster of Joe Montana. So I said, Sarah, we're going to be playing with Joe Montana. How great is that? And then I got drafted. I looked over, and my quarterback was Steve DeBerg. Pretty good, but not Joe Montana.
He's the guy that Montana replaced, I think, on the Niners, wasn't he, DeBerg? Yeah. Oh, my God. But it's, like everything in your life, it seems like it came around. You end up playing football with Joe Montana. You're snapping the ball to Joe Montana.
Unbelievable. I mean, yeah. So when they were talking about drafting Joe Montana, or not drafting, but trading for Joe Montana, I mean, I was just so excited about it. And, so the whole process went through, and they went ahead and got the deal done. So I didn't realize that I have to meet this guy, right? This is Joe Montana. I mean, I remember watching Joe Montana beat Houston in the Cotton Bowl with 101 fever, drinking chicken soup on the sideline, right? And I mean, this was my. So I went in and I'm like, what do I call this guy? Do I call him Joe? Do I call him Mr. Montana? So I walked in, and as soon as I turned the corner, we were like face to face. He goes, "Hey, you're Grunny, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, let's go out and grab something to eat." I'm like, Joe Montana just asked me to go to dinner. I was like a schoolgirl. So I called my wife. This is before cell phones. Now, remember, we didn't have cell phones. So I called her. I said, I'm going out to dinner with Joe Montana. She goes, get the hell out of here. I said, yeah. I said, I should be home around 9 o'clock or so. I'll be home. So we go out and have a nice dinner. He goes, hey, let's go out and see the town a little bit. I've never been to Kansas City. Well, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I realized I haven't talked to my wife. I'm still out at 3 o'clock in the morning. We had a mini camp the next day, right? Oh. So I get home and my wife is livid. I called the fire. I called the hospitals, and I didn't know where you were at. And I said, Sarah, you don't tell Joe Montana you have to go home to your wife. You just don't do that. And at that point, she went from one switch to the other. Goes, you're probably right. Yeah. So, but that was our relationship. Joe and I had a great relationship for the years we played together, and still do. So.
God, that's phenomenal. I mean, I'm guessing he was like pulling the old vet move where I got to get to know my center. One of those types of things, huh? Wow.
It's a very personal relationship when you have a guy's hands between your legs.
Yeah, I was going to throw that in there. You guys got intimate quickly. I love it, man. But it doesn't even stop there. And again, I want to continue to reiterate, go pick up this book as soon as it lands, folks. View from the Center. Because you also, it doesn't stop there. You played with Marcus Allen. You're blocking for Christian Okoye. Did that guy ever run into the back of you? That couldn't have felt good if Christian Okoye.
All right, so I'm gonna do my best Christian Okoye accent and imitate him as much as I can. Yeah, so we're playing against the Oakland Raiders, and I'm blocking Bob Golick, another Notre Damer, and and Christian had a bad habit of not missing his offensive lineman. He would run into you and run you over and run over the guy you're blocking and get those extra yards. So I'm blocking Bob Golick, and he hit me square in the back. And my legs went numb. I hit a nerve or something. And Bob Golick is actually holding me up. He's like, man, I heard that. You got to be hurting. I said, I can't feel my legs. I said, and eventually I went back to the huddle. I'm like, Christian, try not to hit us and go through the holes. He goes, this is what he says. You either move the man in front of you or I'll move you. So there you go.
I love it, man. You've got these impressions down. Great.
So I promise you, Stacy, I promise you, one of the things I never did the rest of my career is stop my feet. Because once you stop your feet, Christian will go ahead and run your ass over in a second. So it was a good lesson for me.
I literally threw that in as a whim. It's hilarious. I mean, I guess it's funny that it happened, but not so funny for somebody like you. So just staying on the Kansas City Chiefs theme and the great experiences you cover in your book, Derek Thomas. I know you guys became friends. I know that for a fact. Very close. What was that like, dealing with the blow of losing such an amazing person?
Very, very difficult. The crazy thing is that Derek had the accident on the day of my youngest daughter's christening. And he was going to pop by, but decided that, this was Derek. Derek, he had FOMO, fear of missing out, right? So he was going to go. Al Saunders was with the the St. Louis Rams at the time.
Yeah.
And they just won that playoff game, and he wanted to go and have a good time and party with the guys and be with his buddies in St. Louis. So they were rushing to the airport, and he had the accident. But Derek was a wonderful person and a very giving person. And one of the things that I try to honor him with is I'm on the board of his charity which still is going very strong. It's called Third and Long Foundation. And we do a lot of things for inner city kids, with schools, and with all kinds of different development programs to help them to be able to cope with the pressures of school and being, in some tough situations. And Derek he started that when he was here. But my favorite Derek Thomas story is, the very first practice I saw Derek Thomas, I thought this guy's terrible. He absolutely, positively can't do anything. I mean, he was getting just lit up by John Alt, who was our left tackle. Yeah. And John Alt was putting his hands in his chest and locking him out. And Derek was laughing and he just hated to practice. But when he got in the game, he flipped a switch. Not a lot of people can do that. The whole adage, you practice, you play like you practice. Well, he was the opposite of that. I mean, he just went through the motions in practice and and it just used to drive the coaches crazy. But there's never been a better playmaker in Kansas City Chiefs history on the defensive side than Derek Thomas. With sacks, strip fumbles, and safeties, that guy could do it all and was as good as anybody at that first and second step and getting to another move after that first move, which is so important in the NFL. And he was one of the best at that and just a special person.
I tell every young kid, my son played a little linebacker in high school. I'd say, go watch two guys. You watch Derek Thomas and you watch Lawrence Taylor. And DT was incredible. I can't imagine how much you miss him. And it's great to hear you're still involved with Third and Long Foundation. I know you're on the board there. It's awesome. Okay, before we leave Kansas City, a couple of the cheese questions you're always going to get from us fans and people who want to know. First, I have to say, you've mentioned some of your coaches. Marty Schottenheimer, Lou Holtz, Bill Cower, Barry Alvarez, Tony Dungy, Bruce Arians, Howard Mudd, Alex Gibbs. Where does it end? How have these men impacted you, Grunny? I mean, this is incredible.
Yeah, and Mike McCarthy was with us.
Oh, Mike McCarthy.
Yeah. I mean, and Mike and I were really good friends because we were pretty much the same age. He was a little bit older than I was. And he was a quarterback coach and I was a center. So we did a lot of things. We went on vacations together. But I will say, I think I learned responsibility and being held accountable from all the coaches. You can have fun and you can be the personality that you want to be. But there's that fine line when you walk across that white line to go onto the football field. You better be all business. You better be ready to play. You better be ready to perform. You better be ready to learn. You better be ready to do the little things to be great. And then when you're in the meeting rooms, you better take notes. You better pay attention. You better And Howard Mudd would tell us all the time, he said, listen, if you're as smart, if not smarter than your coach, they can't get rid of you. And I tried to do that as much as I possibly could, is try to understand the offense and be a part of the offense with calls and the logistics of the plays, so that, they needed me around. And that was what I always thought. Hey, listen, you got to stay focused. You got to stay relevant, and not only physically, but mentally. And I learned that from all those coaches, because those guys were smart coaches, and those guys really and truly cared about the little things in a football game.
God, it's incredible. I can't wait to dig into your book, man. It's just amazing to look at that roster. So from the same line of questioning, toughest guy you ever faced?
Yeah, let's go back to Cortez Kennedy. Cortez and I, man, had a lot of battles. Unless you had Howie Long, who,
Oh, wow, that's right.
Yeah, I looked up one time, and it was a shotgun, and I knew that the guards were fanning out to help the tackles. I had Howie Long on my head, and I had Ronnie Lott standing in the egg out. Oh. And I said, and I was supposed to pick one of those two to block, right? That's what I'm talking about. Scared. I was scared. I'm like, okay, so if I get in the way of Howie and fall into Ronnie, then maybe I have an opportunity to take, but yeah, in the NFL, you play against so many great football players: Jerry Ball, Michael Carter.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Of course, Cortez Kennedy, Russell Maryland. You named a couple. There's just so many great football players out there, but I would say that Cortez and I, from the time we were 17, 18 years old until the time we were 30 years old, played against each other every year. So it was just a great battle every time.
God, that's fun. This book is going to be so fun to read. It's funny. How tall are you? You said that you were under 6'4".
I used to be 6'3", but I probably about 6'1" now from being knocked down. But I was officially, I always tell people I was officially 6'3.1", and I always tell the guys I weigh 299. Don't put over 300. I don't want to be over 300. So the big joke was, is Grunny still 299? And half the time, you were heavier than that back in the day. But I was 6'3", 299. That's what I played at pretty much my whole career.
I was watching some clips of you. The reason I asked it, I was watching some clips, and I was thinking, as I watch Grunny here, he looks like the kind of guy the Chiefs could use now against a guy like an Aaron Donald. Like, you seem to have that. Like, Aaron Donald's got this leverage that, he's incredible. But when I was watching you, I thought he gets up against these tall guys, these lanky guys, and I was looking at you going, I'm glad you're not playing now.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because we just talked about that on the radio on WHB today. Nice. about these measurables, right? It's all about measurables nowadays. And, if you're under a certain height or you don't weigh a certain amount, they don't even look at you really anymore. I'm talking about colleges. And then if you're not going to play in college, and you probably don't have a great opportunity to play in the NFL, it kind of coincides with each other. But the measurable now, but like Marty would say all the time, the measurable that was important to him is that 6 inches between your breastbone and your backbone. That's your heart. And I always thought that, listen, the game is played about 4 foot. And if you can get down, so if you're 6'7", it's hard to get down to 4 foot.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're 6'3", and now I understand the length stuff, the tackles, you got to keep people out. But inside, I always thought, listen, the shorter you are, the more compact you are, the better leverage you play with, the more movement you can get. And so I always felt comfortable and was glad that, I was a 6'3" offensive lineman.
Yeah, I think you're the kind of guy that would give my favorite guy some trouble now. I think it's kind of interesting when I was watching some film on you. So we want to leave some time to talk a little bit about post-career. And I'm going to blindside you with this one as an offensive lineman, because I can tell just looking at you, when you left the game, were you like these O linemen now that just suddenly slim down and become these Adonises like overnight? Like at one point they were the bulk monster, and now it's like, oh my God, look at him, he's chiseled. What happened here?
It was a process for me, because so I played at about 310, 315. Ooh. And when I was done playing, I ballooned up to 345, 350.
Oh, wow.
And I lost 100 pounds after, I had some different talks with doctors. Say, listen, if you want to have a good long life, you got to get down. And that's when I really started working out. And I work out just about every day.
Wow.
I have a trainer that I go to at least 4 or 5 times a week, and I do cardio every day. Sarah and I and my wife, we walk all the time. But yeah, thank you. You know what? It's a process. It's hard. But yeah, I was able to lose 100 pounds and keep it off. So
Wow.
yeah, it was very important to me to take care of myself because, you know, my father, God rest his soul, never had an opportunity to see me get married and never had an opportunity to meet his grandkids. And I want to be able to watch my kids get married and watch my kids have their babies. I want to be around their lives. So I had to make a conscious decision to make some better decisions. And that's what I did.
God, that's awesome. I had to get that in there because I noticed it, and I think a lot of people need to hear it, even those of us that didn't play offensive lineman in the NFL. That's great stuff, my friend. So post-career, you've become a high school coach. It comes out of your pores. I mean, I can tell it by you. But it started out challenging, and then you ended up winning a state championship. You're still coaching, correct? The young guys?
I am. So, yeah. So right when I got out, I went to become an assistant coach for a friend of mine who was coaching at a little small Catholic school up at the airport at St. Pius High School. I was the offensive line coach there for about 4 years. And then I became the head coach at Bishop Miege. And in this, Stacy, don't laugh now, I was a theology teacher for 5 years.
Interesting.
Freshman theology. Once again, we're going back to this Forrest Gump thing where I wore a lot of shoes in my life.
Interesting.
So I was a teacher, and then I got into radio. I actually coached in NFL Europe for the Cologne Centurions for a year. And then I coached the University of Kansas under Charlie Weiss for a couple of years, which was a really, really difficult thing, by the way. We were not even going to talk about that. It was
okay, we'll move on.
But yeah, football has always been in my life. And, you know, I've had an opportunity, Stacy. And, you know, I really appreciate a lot of the guys that are out there talking about the football and keeping football like you are on this podcast, keeping football fresh, making people love the game. I had an opportunity to go and do some color commentating and maybe do stuff on Saturdays and Sundays. But I kind of learned from Mike Webster, and it kind of rotates back to that. He gave me an opportunity to have success in my life. I use football as a vehicle to have a great life. If I give that back, I felt like, you know, I owe it to Mike to go be a coach and give kids an opportunity. There's a football program out there for all these kids. I don't care how big you are or how small you are. If you want to play college football, there's a program out there for you. If you can use football as a vehicle to have success, a vehicle to go to college, to keep you focused, to keep you kind of centered in your life, then, you know, I want to be there to help you be able to do that. And it was too important for me to pass it on to other kids and pass it on to other players than to go out there and do those other kind of things. So I've been very, very blessed to be able to coach and do the things I've done in football, and I've been doing it, gosh, for almost 30 years now.
Man, a huge thank you from a guy that's close to your age. I've watched my son go through it. I absolutely love that there's people like you that want to give back, because we really need that. The game's changing so much and dramatically, and we don't need to go into the money and all these stuff that's come with it, but it's still this great, great game. So thank you from this guy. And I know that people reading the book and listening will feel the exact same way. So you're doing radio as well. I think you definitely have a radio presence. That doesn't shock me at all. Is that still a full-time gig?
Are you saying I have a face for radio, Stacy? Is that what you're saying?
You're stealing my line, man.
Yeah. So I was doing it full-time for about 10 or 15 years. And now what I do is I do a guest spot on all the shows on 810 WHB. Every day I have an hour, which is great. And that's all I want to do. There's more during the season than the off season. But, you know, I love sharing my knowledge of the game. And once again, like we just talked about, I like when people, they hear something from me and maybe they pick something up and I say, hey, look for this or look for that. And it makes them enjoy the football game more. Then you fall in love with the sport even more. And that's important to me, is to get people to be excited about watching the game, be excited about, hey, I heard Grunny talking about this, you know, blocking back and pulling that guard and the tackle on that counter. And there it is. So, you know, they get excited about that. And that's fun to me. I really enjoy doing that.
God, I love it. I love it, man. So, okay, in conclusion, before we jump into our 2-minute drill, I want to respect your time. Tell us about View from the Center. How did you go from knocking heads with some of the biggest defensive linemen and blitzing linebackers? Now you're an author. Tell us about this book and where we can get it and when it's coming out, because I saw your tweet tonight, folks. Go check him out on Twitter.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Stacy. And yeah, so, When COVID hit, everybody was kind of shut down and locked down. And I was sitting there with my wife, and I said, I got so many stories and so many fun things to talk about. And I played with so many great players and played in so many great games. I'd like to put that down on paper. So I got a hold of David Small, who is an author here in Kansas City who does a bunch of different books. And I said, hey, will you help me with this project? And we spent probably 8-9 months going through all kinds of different stories, taping different things, going through different logistics of video and everything else. And we put together this book. And when you read this book, you'll see what made Grunny, from growing up as a little kid, and then all the stories about Notre Dame and the recruiting and all. And I talk about all the players I played with, like Joe Montana's, the Marcus Allens, the Neil Smiths, the Derek Thomas, the Dan Saliamuas, Dave Zott, all those guys, Rich Gannon. So talk about all those guys, talk about the great games, but mostly, Stacy, and this is the most important thing to me. In the 90s, the Kansas City Chiefs needed to make a decision. All right. In the 80s, the program and the organization was down. And when Carl Peterson and Marty Schottenheimer came in, they thought of two things. They said, number one, we got to draft the right people. And number two, we got to build a relationship with the fan. And the players are the ones that are the conduits to do that. So they gave us a lot of leeway to go out and do radio shows, to go out and be around at different presentations and going around to different places and meeting the fan. So everybody always says that Arrowhead is like a college-like atmosphere because maybe it's loud, everybody dresses in red. But I think it goes deeper than that. In the 90s, we wanted to build a relationship so the players and the fans knew each other. They knew me. They felt comfortable with me. They felt comfortable with Derek Thomas. They felt comfortable with Neil Smith. And that was important to us because we built that relationship. So when they came to the game, they felt ownership. They felt like they were a part of the game. They felt like, hey, I know Tim Grunhard. I saw him last Thursday night at the Levee doing a radio show, and I felt like he was talking to me. And we built this relationship, and that's where the foundation of the Kansas City Chiefs, this Chiefs Kingdom, started in the 90s. And Patrick Mahomes held up that Lombardi trophy, which was one of the proudest moments I had on the foundation that we built in the 90s, and I talk about that process.
God, I love that. And that's all in this book, folks, for those listening or watching, View from the Center, which you can pick up at timgrunhard.com. Where else could we get the book? Is it going to be Amazon and all the...
It's at all Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the different, different sites that anybody buys a book, they're at all the different sites. TimGrunhard.com. If you order from my website, I'll give you a signed copy. I sign every copy that I sell that comes out of my thing. So, yeah, so that's the plus with ordering from TimGrunhard.com. And we had a bunch of pre-orders. And I'll tell you what, Stacey, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't have started the pre-orders this early because a lot of people are banging on me to say, where's my book? I bought it in April and I still don't have it. It's coming out, right? They wanted to wait for the football season. So we have a bunch of book signings and all kinds of different things going on. It's going to be a great, fun, busy fall. But Stacey, I just enjoyed so much writing down these stories and, just reminiscing and thinking about all the great things that happened in my life and how football was so great for me. It just humbled me. And I got it. I just got it today, Stacey, when I was like,
yeah,
I have a book. I mean, a kid like Tim Grunhard from the Southside Chicago has got a book. I mean, it was crazy. So.
It's a beautiful thing, man. I literally saw the tweet like 40 minutes before I joined you, and I retweeted it on Gridiron Icon. Folks, go check this out at Tim Grunhard. My God, you can't pass up an autographed copy of this thing. So go order. So we like to quit. We like to end the show with a quick 2-minute drill. And this is where we just get to learn about what goes on in that head of yours and who you are. And yeah, are you scared yet? Most people get scared. I try to, depending on the age of the player or coach, I tend to, take some in and out. We're going to go simple on you. And I think I know the answers to some of yours, but 2-minute drill with Tim Grunhard, national champion, Kansas City Chiefs Ring of Honor. Tim, grass or turf?
Grass.
Yeah.
You know
Old
why?
School.
You know why? And I know we're not supposed to elaborate, but I'm always in a
No, please.
It slows the defensive lineman down. Anything that slows defensive lineman down is good in my book.
Tidbit, people, little nugget right there. Okay, little more esoteric here. Cats or dogs? I think I can hear one.
I think you heard it. Yeah. You know what? She knew that question was coming up, and she's like, "Tell him it's me, Dad. Tell him it's me." So yeah, it's dogs. I apologize. You know what? Your great producer says find a quiet room, and I put the dogs in the back room. So, but I'm a dog guy. I'm a dog. Although we do have a cat. We do have a cat. Cats are great, but they're on their own program. They do what the hell they want. So.
They do. And I'm taking away from this time with you that you're in line with the universe, man. I mean, as soon as the dog question came, we got to hear from the dog. Boom. She was there.
She's there.
Okay. Tim Grunhard, favorite movie?
Oh, gosh. Favorite movie? Probably Rocky. Back in the days, Rocky. I'll never forget because for one reason or another, I didn't see it in the movie theater. And my buddy and I had a countdown to when it was going to be on ABC, Channel 7 in Chicago.
Wow.
And we started like 45 days and we would pull the thing off when it came out. But yeah, so Rocky was probably my favorite movie growing up.
Oh my God, we're the same generation. Okay, this one might be tough. Your most underrated teammate at any level?
Dave Zott. And that's
wow.
easy. Dave Zott, I was blessed enough to be put into the Chiefs Hall of Fame and the Ring of Fame. The guy next to me was Will Shields. He's in the Hall of Fame and the Chiefs Ring of Fame. Dave Zott was as good, if not better, than all of us. And he has not had that opportunity yet, and he really should. Dave Zott was the glue that kept that offensive line together. Love Dave Zott. He is the most underrated player, and he is one of the guys that now he's working for the Jets organization, doing a great job. But, he belongs in the Ring of Fame too, so he's very underrated.
All right, let's go, Chiefs Nation. Let's go. Okay, your greatest football achievement?
Winning the national championship in 1988.
Had a feeling.
Yeah, great experience. Played against West Virginia. We talk about it a little bit in the book. All their offensive linemen look like their mascot, like the big mountaineer guy with the beard, and they were huge guys, and we felt like these little school kids wearing our suits and our ties around. But yeah, so that was a great game. We were able to win that game. So winning that national championship in 1988.
I still remember the clips of Lou Holtz running you guys out of that tunnel out in front. This little man just doing his thing with you behemoths. Okay. Who plays Tim Grunhard? Who plays Grunny in a movie of your life?
Oh, wow. Well, Farley passed away, so we can't have him do it.
No. He'd be honored.
I love Clint Eastwood, but he's got a little bit aged over the years, so I could probably
in his prime.
Probably Rob Riggle. He's a Kansas City guy. Really just a great guy. Comes back and helps in Kansas City all the time for different charitable events. We became friends. I think Rob would do a good Grunny.
Oh, there you go. That's a really good choice. I like that. Okay, and then finally on our final note, who has impacted your life more than any other person? This may sound a little bit corny, but my wife, by far, she hung around with me through thick and thin. We started dating. We were 18 years old. We were freshmen at Notre Dame. And we made it all the way through those, to the the good times, the bad times, the highs and lows of life. But she's done a wonderful job of raising all 4 kids. They're all out of college, working, doing great things. And she let me be the crazy Grunny that I am. But wasn't for her, who knows what happened? I'd probably been in jail by now. So, it's definitely my wife, Sarah. She's the rock. She's the wind beneath my wings, and I just enjoy every day we have with each other. I got to tell you, man, that is the best answer possible. I love it. And several players have said, "Oh my goodness, my wife is amazing." Yeah, that's good stuff. This is good in a world that's got a lot of stuff going on right now. It is great to hear really good, positive, good, loving feedback, man. So that's good stuff. Tim Grunhard, Grunny, thank you. Where can people connect with you online?
Yeah, well, you can go to timgrunhard.com if you're interested in the book. And then I'm on Twitter at Grunny61. I don't know about any of the other things. I'm on Facebook. This is Tim Grunhard, but that Instagram and all that TikTok and all that stuff, I don't know anything about that stuff. So I stay away from that stuff. So
you're in trouble. If there's a TikTok, I'm going to go find you.
But so that's where I'm at. And then, of course, on 810 WHB, anytime I do a segment or I do an hour show, they put it on the little clips and you can listen to it on their website. But I'll tell you what, Stacy, this has been great. Really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about the book, but more importantly, to talk about the people that I loved in this game. It was a wonderful football game. I've just been so blessed to be a part of the Kansas City Chiefs nation and the Kansas City Chiefs kingdom for all these years. But, I look in the back and I see your Rams jerseys and I see all those things. You know what? That's the great thing, though. I mean, you know what? We can hate each other on Sundays, but the rest of the week, man, we're all connected and we're all brought together by what? This great game of football.
God, well said, my friend. You have encapsulated the spirit of this podcast, which is keeping these great players and moments alive forevermore. That's really the purpose. Thank you, Tim Grunhard, for joining us and making yourself available for this. People, please go pick up View from the Center at timgrunhard.com. We're going to be promoting it on Gridiron Icon as well. Can't wait to get our own copy. Tim Grunhard, thank you, my friend. We really appreciate you joining us, and let's be friends. Let us know if there's anything we can do for you here at Gridiron Icon.
Hey, we expect you to come out to Kansas City for that Rams game. We'll get some barbecue. How about that?
I will take you up on that, considering you and I weren't hanging out for that Monday night game. That is probably one of the best regular season games in history.
It was. That was a great one. Great to see you, and hello to everybody out there in Gridiron Icon land, and God bless y'all.
Thank you, sir. Like, subscribe, folks. We appreciate it. Thanks to our guest, and we will see you next week.